She was Hollywood's most powerful Latina, the ultimate success story of immigrant dreams and cultural pride, but none of it was real. For 15 years, the world watched Sofia Vergara represent Latin excellence. They were actually watching the most sophisticated cultural manipulation in entertainment history. One man controlled her brand, her relationships, and even her identity as a Latina, and she never knew it. When the truth was revealed live, it didn't just destroy her career, it exposed how Hollywood turns culture into commerce and sells it back to us as authenticity. This story will make you question every cultural icon you've ever believed in. Sofia Vergara stood on the red carpet at the Griselda premiere, radiating the confidence and cultural pride that had made her one of Hollywood's most beloved stars. Her Netflix series about a powerful Latina drug lord was being hailed as groundbreaking representation. Her beauty brand was celebrating record sales with its authentic Latina beauty campaign. Her social justice work supporting Latin entrepreneurs was inspiring millions. And her personal life, recovering from divorce with Joe Manganiello and finding new love with Justin Salaman, showed vulnerability and strength. She was the perfect symbol of the American dream through a Latin lens. But 72 hours later, the world would discover that every aspect of her authentic Latin identity had been carefully engineered by the most dangerous cultural manipulator in modern media. His name was Ricardo Santana, and he was about to prove that even cultural identity could be manufactured, marketed, and weaponized. Ricardo Santana had been studying Sofia Vergara for years, waiting for the perfect moment to reconstruct her identity. Ricardo appeared in Sofia's professional circle through a network of Latin business leaders and cultural advisors, presenting himself as a cultural brand architect who specialized in helping Latin celebrities maximize their authentic cultural impact while building global empires. His credentials were impeccable: former advisor to major Latin American brands, consultant for diversity initiatives at Fortune 500 companies, strategist for cultural representation in Hollywood. What Sofia didn't know was that Ricardo Santana was completely fictional. He was actually Simon Leviev, the Tinder swindler, but his game had evolved far beyond individual fraud into something much more insidious: the complete commodification and control of cultural identity itself. His approach to Sofia was brilliant. You're not just a successful actress, you're a cultural ambassador. Let me show you how to turn your heritage into a movement that changes how the world sees Latin excellence. Within months, Sofia was sharing her deepest cultural insecurities with the world's most dangerous identity manipulator. Ricardo convinced Sofia that her cultural impact needed strategic amplification to reach its full potential. He guided her through repositioning her beauty brand from simple cosmetics to a cultural empowerment platform. He developed her social justice initiatives, helping her craft messages about Latin representation that would resonate across demographics. He even advised her on how to discuss her divorce and new relationship in ways that would strengthen her image as a strong Latina woman, navigating modern life. What Sofia didn't realize was that Ricardo was recording every conversation, documenting every insecurity she'd ever had about being typecast, about whether she was Latin enough for some audiences or too stereotypical for others. He was building a complete psychological map of her relationship with her own identity, learning exactly how to control her by exploiting her deepest desire to be seen as authentically representing her culture. But Ricardo's real plan was to prove that cultural identity itself could be manufactured and sold. Using the intimate details Sofia shared, Ricardo began systematically reconstructing her entire public persona. Her beauty brand's authentic Latina beauty campaign wasn't based on genuine cultural pride. It was designed using market research data to exploit both Latin consumers' desire for representation and non-Latin consumers' desire to appear culturally inclusive. Her social justice work wasn't rooted in real community connection. It was algorithmically optimized to generate maximum media coverage and brand partnerships. Even her statements about representation in Hollywood were focus group tested to appeal to the broadest possible audience. Most devastatingly, Ricardo was rewriting Sofia's relationship with her own heritage. Through carefully guided conversations, he was convincing her that certain aspects of Colombian culture should be emphasized for American audiences, while others should be minimized. As Sofia's authentic identity disappeared, her cultural influence reached unprecedented levels. The more Sofia followed Ricardo's guidance, the more powerful she became as a cultural symbol. Her Griselda performance was being hailed as the most authentic portrayal of Latin complexity ever seen on screen. Her beauty brand was breaking sales records and being studied as a model for cultural marketing. She was invited to speak at conferences about authentic representation. Major brands competed for partnerships that would associate them with her cultural credibility. She had become the definitive voice of Latin excellence in America. But behind the scenes, Sofia was becoming completely dependent on Ricardo's guidance for understanding her own identity. She couldn't make decisions about how to represent her culture without consulting his authenticity frameworks. She was also becoming isolated from her actual Latin community. Ricardo convinced her that traditional Colombian perspectives were limiting her growth, that her family's expectations were holding her back, and that genuine cultural connection was less effective than strategic cultural positioning. The trap was finally ready to be sprung. Ricardo convinced Sofia that her ultimate cultural statement would be a live broadcast during Hispanic Heritage Month, where she would reveal the real challenges of being a Latina in Hollywood, the stereotyping, the struggles, and the triumphs. What she didn't know was that Ricardo had spent months creating deepfake technology trained on all their private conversations. He could now generate content that perfectly mimicked her voice discussing her cultural identity in ways that would destroy everything she'd built. On the night of her planned Ultimate Cultural Authenticity broadcast, as 60 million viewers tuned in worldwide, Ricardo hijacked her stream with the most devastating cultural expose ever broadcast live. 60 million people watched Sofia Vergara's cultural identity dissolve in real time. The hijacked stream began with audio from her private strategy sessions with Ricardo, but they'd been edited to make her appear cynically calculating about her cultural identity. Viewers heard her discussing how to leverage Latin stereotypes for profit and how to perform Colombianness for American audiences. But the most damaging content came from her business operations. The stream revealed that her authentic Latina beauty products weren't developed with Latin communities. They were created using demographic data and stereotype analysis to maximize appeal to non-Latin consumers seeking exotic beauty. The broadcast showed that her Griselda performance wasn't based on deep cultural research. It was crafted using focus groups testing which Latin drug lord characteristics would be most compelling to American audiences. Most devastatingly, it revealed that her social justice work wasn't driven by genuine community connection. It was market-tested activism designed to monetize Latin representation. But the most shocking revelation was still to come. As the stream continued, viewers finally saw Ricardo Santana's true identity, Simon Leviev, the Tinder swindler. But his confession was more chilling than anyone expected. Sofia Vergara's Latin identity is actually my greatest product design. His voice played over footage of their sessions. For years, you've been buying her Colombian authenticity, but I created that authenticity using market research, stereotype analysis, and cultural commodification strategies. Every accent emphasis, every cultural reference, every moment of pride, I engineered it to be maximally profitable. The investigation that followed revealed that Simon hadn't just been manipulating Sofia. He'd been running a massive experiment on how cultural identity could be manufactured, marketed, and weaponized for profit. The FBI discovered that Simon Leviev had been using Sofia's platforms to perfect techniques for artificial cultural identity creation. His ultimate goal was to prove that cultural representation could be completely manufactured and controlled, then sell these techniques to corporations and political organizations. The data he'd collected from Sofia's empire was being packaged as cultural identity engineering, a system for creating authentic-seeming cultural representation that was actually calculated manipulation. Simon Leviev was sentenced to life in prison for cultural terrorism, identity manipulation, and conspiracy to commodify human heritage. The case sparked revolutionary debates about authenticity and representation and led to new disclosure requirements for cultural marketing. But for Sofia, the damage was irreversible. The live stream had been watched by over 200 million people worldwide. Her cultural credibility was destroyed. Latin communities felt betrayed by someone they'd seen as authentic representation. 6 months later, Sofia released her first genuine statement in Spanish and English. I became so focused on being the perfect Latina for everyone that I forgot how to be Colombian for myself. The most radical thing I can do now is stop performing my culture and start living it. The Latin illusion became more than a celebrity scandal. It became a global reckoning with how modern media commodifies cultural identity, turns heritage into marketing strategy, and sells authenticity that was manufactured in boardrooms. In the end, Sofia Vergara's story taught the world that in an era where representation equals profit, the people who can manufacture authentic-seeming identity have unlimited power to control how cultures are seen, valued, and ultimately exploited.